So in the last segment, we were talking about boundaries and what they are, and the concept of having things that we're clear about of what's our responsibility and what's somebody else's responsibility. Now, we're going to talk about how do we get you out from painting yourself into that corner of giving other people power over you as far as your happiness, and how do you take that back, and how do you own the things that you're responsible for, and speak up when you need to speak up. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Let's take a look at a verse of scripture in Matthew 5, and in verse 37, it says, it's kind of funny, it says, simply let your yes be yes and your no, no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Now, it's kind of interesting because, like, what does that mean? I mean, you know, let your yes be yes and your no be no. This is something that I really believe that we've all struggled with at one time or another, is the concept of saying what we talked about, saying yes when you want to say yes and saying no when you want to say no. I mean, haven't you ever, you know, said yes when you mean no, you know, or that kind of thing? So it's not, again, it sounds so simple. The verse of scripture sounds like the simplest thing in the world to do, but not as simple to carry out. Now, why is that? What is the fear in speaking up as far as saying what your desires are, what your wants, etc. are? Really, I think most of the time we are afraid of things like, you know, the other person's reaction. Hasn't that ever been a concern? You know, or even being afraid of losing the relationship. You know, like, and so this is one of the reasons that it's really important that we don't date when we're lonely. Like, dating when you're lonely is the worst possible thing in the world, because then you're not really in a place that you can let go when you need to let go. You know, because we all need relationship. We are built as human beings to need relationship, like desperately need relationship. We need connection with other people. And so when you're not having that, when you're not having that connection, you will feel lonely. Now, it's interesting because we don't just need friends to just hang out with and be social with. We actually have a need, like, it's fine, like most of us have people that we can go out and, I don't know, do whatever our hobbies are, you know, go to the movies, you know, that kind of thing. People to hang out and have a good time with. But really, unless we're in a place that we are allowed to be vulnerable, allowed to really open our hearts to the more vulnerable parts of us with others and have others, people be there and have that deeper connection, you're going to experience loneliness. Or, you know, you just sort of deaden yourself. You just callous yourself, where, you know, you don't leave yourself open to care. And a lot of times people try and fulfill that emptiness, that vacuum with sex, actually, because that has a sense of feeling like there's a deeper, you know, intimacy and connection, you know, and that's why a lot of people are drawn to that. It comes, that desire, because we just have a desire. It's built in us to need that deeper connection with another person. And so sex sometimes simulates that, even though there isn't a really deeper heart connection, but it has a sense or a feeling like, you know, that resembles that. You know, does that make sense? So this is a really important thing to understand, is that this is normal and natural, that you would feel this longing of being in relationships that are deeper and that have more vulnerability. If you don't, you will have this vacuum and this sense of loneliness. And so that's when you're in that position and you don't, you know, this is like, you know, and people want to reach out, especially in romantic relationships. A lot of times people don't even let themselves be vulnerable except in romantic relationships. They don't let that really happen in their platonic relationships. So it's the first time that it's almost like that they connect in a really emotional or a deeper way, or allow themselves to be needy, or allow themselves, you know, connect more with their heart. So if they're not having it in other relationships, they're definitely, like, will desire being in romantic relationships. And that was me. That was me like crazy. You know, I didn't know how to not be in romantic relationships because I felt empty otherwise. You know, it was just like this big empty spot inside of me. So when you're in that situation, is it going to be easy to say no to somebody? You know, you think about that. Doesn't it, like, of course it makes sense that it's going to be and is logical that it's hard to step away because, you know, or be afraid of how somebody might react, be afraid that they might leave the relationship, and then guess what? Here you are alone. And that's pretty unbearable, you know. So part of this is that we want to be in a place that we have healthy platonic relationships, that we can be vulnerable, that we can go deep, that we can let people into our heart and connect that way, so we don't have this big vacuum happening. And so that way, when we build relationships like that around in our lives, it's easy for us to step away and to say no to things, and to say, let our yeses be yes and our nos be no. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about this, because you want to be able to say yes without strings attached. You know, have you ever like given or said yes, but you kind of secretly have an expectation underlying that? Do you know what I'm saying? You kind of like, you expect something in return. So you want to kind of be in a place that when you're giving, there's no strings, where you are in a place that of acceptance, that your gift is your gift. And maybe it would be great if people reciprocated, but you'd be okay if they didn't. You'd be at peace with that. You could, sometimes maybe it is okay, like if you're in a relationship and it's not being reciprocated, to step away from the relationship, to make that choice. You know, I had a relationship once, a really good friend of mine, or at least I thought it was a good friend until this happened. It was one of those lopsided relationships where I just felt like I was making all the effort. You know, we were friends, and when we get together, I'd always go out to see her. She lived pretty far. She lived almost an hour away. And so I'd go to see her, and she was late, like a lot. So there was one point, and I kept talking about it and saying, you know, saying that bothered me that she was late, and she said that she wasn't going to do it anymore, but it kept happening. And there was this one, talk about coming to a head. We were sitting there where we were supposed to meet for dinner, and I drove an hour, and the place was 10 minutes from her home. So she had called me and kept saying, I'm on my way, and she was late. She goes, order for me, I'm on my way. So I ordered her dinner. I sat there, and I actually sat there for an hour, and she still wasn't there. Yeah. I had to wind up either waiting till whenever she showed up, which I have no idea, or paying for her dinner and mine and leaving, and that's what I did after an hour. So that then the ball's in my court as far as, you know, like what to do with that, where I had to say, you know what, I'm not going to get together with you anymore, you know, unless you come to see me. You know, I really feel like we've talked about this and it's not working, and you're late all the time, and so, you know, I just really don't want to drive out there anymore to see you, you know, after that incident. And that was the end of our relationship, actually, which kind of shows you, like, how deep could that have relationship really been if, you know, she wasn't even willing to make the effort, you know. So it was like I had to be in a place that I was able to say, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore, and be okay with however she responded. So it's kind of that's again why we can't be really lonely, because if we're lonely, the thing is we just need that other person so much that it's hard to do that, because then, you know, we don't have the relationship anymore. It's kind of interesting when you think about, like, even God has boundaries. Think about that, like, not even God has boundaries. God's kind of the author of boundaries. But isn't it interesting, because God respects our free choice. God respects our free will. Like, God gives without strings attached. You think about salvation. You know, like, salvation God gave, but do people always, as a free gift, do people always respond the way God would like to that? No. But what's amazing when we see God and how He works is that He doesn't step in then and take control. You know, He doesn't start pulling the strings and make people do things that they don't want to do. And God even expresses and is very clear in Scripture about He has emotion. God describes Himself with emotion, about being, you know, about being angry, or, you know, emotions that He has that are not, you know, Jesus even. We saw Jesus, there were times when He got angry with people, you know, that He wasn't always just all, you know, warm and fuzzy kind of a thing. With God, you see things like, you know, where He will confront, you know, things. He'll confront sin, where He totally respects our free will, though, and doesn't overstep that. And then He gives without strings. He also says and is really vocal about what He wants and doesn't want. But that doesn't always mean God gets what He wants from us, does He? And He's God. You know, so if God can't always get the desired response, you know, with all that He's got, then it's understandable that sometimes people aren't always going to respond the way that we would like, you know. So we need to want to be in a place of acceptance of that. God also sets limits and has consequences for things. So this is why, you know, so this is where, you know, we want to move into this. I was thinking about this when I was on this topic of, could you imagine if God didn't have boundaries, what that would look like? You know, what if God was a people pleaser? You know, oh God, oh I can't do that, oh they won't like me then. Could you imagine if God made all of His decisions based on worrying about whether He's liked or not? Man, talk about a crazy world it would be. It would be total chaos here, you know. So it really works as far as God setting limits, saying what He wants, but then respecting people's free will, and even God has to live with, you know, not always getting what He wants. And so what would this look like as far as like having good boundaries and respecting other people's boundaries? Respecting other people's boundaries would be respecting their opinions, respecting their choices, respecting their feelings, where you can disagree with somebody, you can not like what somebody else is choosing, but you respect that it's their right to choose. That's what it would look like. You know, so let's talk a little bit about how to, because in this we need to learn how to make requests and to set limits. That's a really important thing. I know it's hard, isn't it, sometimes to ask people for things? Have you ever struggled with that or had a problem with making requests? So we want to talk about that, and this is something you want to practice and learn how to do, because in every relationship you need to learn how to speak about the things that you would like. Speaking about what you like and setting limits is not the same as just complaining. You know, complaining and not doing anything about it is just nagging, and that's not going to work, you know. So basically we want to be in the place that we speak up about the things that we like and desire, and practice this. This is also another reason why you want to have good, safe, platonic relationships where there are people that you can try that out and practice saying what you'd like, making requests. The other thing is when you make a request of somebody, the ball's now in their court. So you may or may not get your request. They have the right to choose. And I think this is also why it can be painful sometimes to not ask. Because sometimes people are in a place that it's too, where again, we talked about the whole concept of, like, if you make a request, it feels needy, you know, or the pain of hearing a no. But you really need to be in a place where you can say no and you can hear no, you know, and where that's okay. So again, you have to be okay with the reality is you might ask somebody for something and they say no, or that things might not change. And then the ball's now back in your court. You know, if somebody says no, then it's kind of like it goes back to you and it becomes your choice now, where it's up to you as far as what you would like to do about that. You know, you can't change them, you can't force them into doing something, so you can do different things like setting limits. You can set limits physically, you can set limits on your time, on your space. Now limits, again, you're setting limits on yourself, not on the other person. You know, you can't set limits on another person. You can set limits as far as what, you know, you will be okay with and not be okay with, but you have to make the choice of stepping away. You can do things like, you know, like for instance, you can, you know, it's really funny. A friend of mine just did this the other day. I was so proud of her because she was somebody that had a really hard time with boundaries before. And I was talking to her, and she's just kind of back in the dating game after stepping out for a while. And she was dating somebody, and he was saying, he wasn't like asking her out, he was going, she really liked him. She was attracted to him, and they were having a good time. But he would go, hey, you want to hang out, or something like that. And so she told me, which I was so impressed, that she said, you know, I love spending time with you. You know, I really, really enjoy our time together. But I would really like it if you asked me out, like on a date. You know, like to have a real date. And I was just like, oh my God, I was so excited for her, because that's exactly the example of the kind of thing that you want to learn how to do. And a good thing when you think about saying what you desire is think about it that you're fighting for the relationship, not against it. You know, that this is really something to bring you. You are actually inviting the possibility of more closeness by doing that. You know, you're giving somebody the opportunity to respond to you and get even closer by saying the things that you desire. What if she didn't? What if she was sitting there just resenting it? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, which happens a lot, doesn't it, in dating? Where you sit there and you're going, God, I'm so sick of that. Oh my God. You know, hang out. When is that hang out? I don't know, you know, like thinking about that. And then pretty soon, what if, because it turns out he did take her out and she had a great date and it was amazing. And, you know, because he had a desire to, you know, you know, to want to make her happy, you know, so that he didn't have a problem with doing that. And so then that brought them closer together. The alternative, when you don't speak up and say the things that you desire, is you sit there secretly stewing about it, you know, and you sit there and you start building these little things that start pushing you away. And haven't you ever felt your heart kind of push away like that? When somebody's doing something that you don't like, or you're not getting something that you would like, and then you just start building kind of a little wall around your heart that you're not getting it. Well, it doesn't need to be that way. You know, there really is another option here, so long as you understand that the possibility, you have to be in the place of not being so lonely, that you could accept the fact that it's possible that the person could say, you know, I'm not into that, or, you know, I don't, you know, that's too formal, or, you know, they could say, I don't like that idea, or I just want to hang out. What, you're getting all serious on me? You know, I mean, somebody could do that, you know, like, this is just casual. What, are you taking this too seriously? And I know that those things could not feel good, you know, but you want to be in a place that you're deciding what you're okay with and not okay with, you know, but giving other people the opportunity, because there are, you know, to come together on things when they would like to. So anyway, that's a great, I was really excited actually when I talked to her recently and she told me that, because that was huge and worked out really successfully, which often it does. So that's a good example of how to state a request. A good way to put it is to also put it in the context of validating that you value the relationship, that you're doing this to be closer, and because you value them rather than, because it makes it easier for the other person to have a desire to step up, you know, because they get that you're doing it to be close and not to be critical, you know. So that really helps a lot. Okay. Another thing, as far as in speaking up, in making a request, is saying the things that you don't like about things, and then setting consequences. When you set a consequence about something, then you need to be able to back it up. You know, you can't be saying things that you have no intention of doing. You know, like, I'll break up with you if you blah blah blah, and then you don't break up. It's stupid. You know, that's just a threat, and that's more manipulative, because you're trying to get a reaction out of somebody, and so that's more playing games and controlling, as opposed to making decisions that are not about trying to manipulate somebody, but more about you making deliberate choices that you really want to make, that you're ready to make. You know, it's okay to say things like, you know, let's say, there's different examples of how you could set consequences for behaviors you don't like. You could do, sometimes you can, like is talk about emotional withdrawal, where you let somebody know that their behavior, that when they do a behavior, that you feel like pulling away, that's just what's happening for you, because that happens sometimes, doesn't it? People do things and it makes you go, wow, I'm feeling not safe, or I'm feeling like, you know, you can feel like the walls going up, you know, inside. And so sometimes that's a good thing to communicate to people, because when people, a lot of times people want to be close to you. So if you say, hey, that's making, you know, like, when you do that, I feel this way, you know, then the person has a response to go, gosh, I don't want you to feel that way, you know, I don't, you know, and then they get a chance to, you know, like, when you do this, I don't feel very close to you, or I don't feel as close to you. When you're critical of me, you know, I don't feel as close to you. Things like that. Also, physical distance is a good boundary to say. Like, for instance, if sometimes in dating you get in those situations where it comes up where somebody's not respecting your physical boundaries, you know, of what you said you're okay with as far as, you know, touching and sex and that kind of thing goes. And so sometimes a good sometimes it's important to speak up about that, because you don't want to, that's a frustrating place to be, where you're feeling like you're having this battle all the time with somebody. So a boundary, and how you can set that, is saying something like, when if you push intimacy anymore, I'm going to not be alone with you anymore. I'm not going to feel comfortable being alone anymore with you. So that would be like, if you think about it, you have to kind of think through what you are really seriously comfortable with setting as a boundary, and then you have to be willing to follow that up. But to think about an appropriate consequence of, if you continue to do something that I'm saying I don't like, then I will do this. Then I'm not going to, spend time alone with you anymore. Or let's say somebody's driving recklessly. You can say, if you drive recklessly anymore, that makes me feel uncomfortable, when you drive recklessly, so, I'm not going to get in the car with you again, if you continue to drive recklessly. So these are some things that you want to practice. These are not, most of us are not used to having those harder conversations where we say what we want, where we say what we're feeling, where we are setting consequences. And again, do you see the consequences? You're deciding to make a decision based on what they're doing that's helpful to you. It's not punitive. See, it doesn't work. If you're doing something to punish somebody, not going to work. Where I'll show you, I'm going to blah, 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 So if you're doing consequences that are out of emotion, out of anger, not a good place to be. You want to do things that you're fighting really for the relationship, so that if there is a possibility of being able to come together with somebody, you're doing that, and you're just taking care of you in a way that's responsible, not emotional, but that's really thought through as far as consequences and that kind of thing. Another thing that you can do is you don't want to be reactive. You want to be deliberate. It's also not controlling the other person, because the entire time you really have to be clear that you are absolutely accepting and respectful of the other person's choice of however it goes. You have to be in a place that you can be at peace. Another thing that you can, as a consequence, is saying, things like, if you yell at me or anymore, or raise your voice in anger, the next time you do that, I'll have to hang up the phone. Have you ever been on phone conversations where you're sitting there and somebody's just, saying abusive things, or raising their voice, or calling you names, or things like that? You don't have to stay on the phone. It's okay to just go to let somebody know, if you do that again, I'm going to hang up. Or if you do this again, I'm not going to be alone with you. Or you can also say, if you continue to do this, then, I'm going to need to, I'm going to ask that we bring somebody else as a counselor into the relationship, for me to want to continue. Then I'm going to need somebody else's help here for me to go forward. So those are just some ideas. You can stop or decrease the commitment level in the relationship, is another idea of a consequence, where you just say, I'm not going to be exclusive anymore, or I'm not going to want to see you as often, some of those kinds of things. Okay? Now, another thing on this is understanding that it's kind of like, when you're putting this out there, we want the combination of truth and love. That's the magic combination. If you have all truth without love, guess what you got? You got judgment and self-righteousness. If it's just like, I'm going to tell you the truth, you need to hear the truth, and there's no love there, what comes out is judgment and self-righteousness. Now, if you have all love and no truth, that's when you get like the enabling and the people-pleasing and that kind of thing, where you just love, 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 and you're hoping something happens and there's no truth there. So the idea, it talks about in Ephesians 4:15, it says that if we speak the truth in love, we will grow up into Christ. And so our goal when we're speaking to people is to have equal amounts. It's got to have gobs of love and gobs of truth. We want lots of both of those. Actually, let's go to Hebrews 10. It's kind of a cool verse of scripture here. Because any good relationship, you really need to learn to be able to have these harder conversations. These are kind of difficult conversations to have, aren't they? I know for me, it seems like I've gotten myself, I used to not be able to have them ever. You know, I used to just want to just always not rock the boat. And honestly, it was because I was afraid of losing people in my life. I was afraid of people running away. I was afraid of feeling rejected. To be in a place where I would never have conversations like this. And now I have them all the time. I mean, I'm like, I feel like all week long I have these conversations with people. And it's kind of funny because it never is like something I'm like, yay, I'm going to tell somebody what I don't like. Woo! No. I've been doing this actually pretty regularly, and it seems like I'm always like, oh, you know, oh, I hate it. But the thing is I've seen by time and time again, I've seen incredible fruit. I mean, my relationships have gotten stronger and deeper and closer, and the people I love the most, we've had those conversations with each other, you know, and gone through this, and it's part of what makes me feel really safe. You know, a really safe relationship, you should be able to have these conversations and have people be willing and eager to hear. People to really respect and be glad and excited that you're actually being honest, to be, you know, that you're being honest, you know, and sharing the things where, you know, you want, that's what you call a safe relationship. That's what it looks like. So you see, it's really important to practice those in platonic relationships so that it becomes the norm. And once that gets to be normal in platonic relationships, it gets to be something that you can do in a romantic relationship where that has a tendency to be harder to have, it has a tendency to be more difficult to have these hard conversations because romantic relationships are more emotionally charged. So let's look, because this is a great thing in as far as what great relationships are. In Hebrews 10 and verse 24, it says, "And let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds." Now this is kind of funny. You know spurs, right? With a horse, they're little things on those boots that you know, you kick the horse. Probably didn't feel good. Never been spurred before, but the idea is it's sharp and they prick and the horse goes, you know, and you know. So it's kind of interesting that the spurs don't always feel good, but the goal is that we want to have relationships that spur us on to love and good works, love and good deeds. So in all of our relationships, we want to have relationships that we can have these conversations that sometimes might feel like little spurs sometimes to say what you don't like. But it's coming from a place of love. It's coming from a place of being for the relationship, of fighting for the relationship. And the result is that we want to have relationships that help us to grow, not just sit around and be stagnant and play nicey nice all the time. And you just tell everybody, if you just sat around with your friends and told them everything they wanted to hear, I'm telling you, there's not going to be any growth. You're just going to stay where you're at forever. And I don't want that in my life. You know, I want to be a person that's growing and that's hearing. I want other people, if I'm hurting people, I want to hear about that, and I do hurt people. So I want people to feel like they can speak up to me and let me know so that I can fix it. You know, if I'm in a relationship with you, tell me so I can fix it, you know, if I'm doing something hurtful. So, so this is what we're going for as far as really, really quality relationships where we're boundary setting and we're speaking up. Another thing about boundaries that they talk about in Cloud and Townsend's book on boundaries, which I hadn't read it in 12 years, and I was just sort of, I saw this little piece recently where I was just sort of scanning through it, and it talks about how boundaries aren't walls. Boundaries and walls are two different things. Boundaries are like fences where they have a gate, and the gate is so that you can let good things in and let bad things out. You know, so walls don't let anything in and don't let anything out. And that's really, there's way big difference. Sometimes we think we're doing boundaries when we're doing walls. You know, when we've got defenses and we're not like, boundaries, for instance, what you would want to let that's good in is you'd want to let love in. You'd want to let grace in. You want to let truth in. You want to hear truth from other people. If you're not hearing any truth from other people, again, you're going to be stuck. You're going to have so many areas that you are clueless and out of touch with reality, you know? It's kind of funny. Like, it's like I've really noticed this in my life. There were so many places that I was so out of touch with reality and had so much self-deceit, and I really need others constantly, because it's not like the self-deceit ends. I wish it did. I wish it was like I was over with no self-deceit anymore, just see myself completely clearly. But it really makes a big difference in my life. I need other people to speak what I'm not seeing, you know, in my life. So I need to let truth in. I need to let love in. I need to allow people to love me. I need to allow people to give me grace. I need to allow people to give me comfort. I need to allow people to give me support. So I need all those things coming in. And then the other thing is we need to let out the bad things. How many times, again, we talked about stuffing things down, you know, stuffing hurts and everything else down. The Bible talks about, there's a verse of scripture that says, confess your faults one to another that you might be healed. A big part of the healing process is actually talking about the bad stuff that's inside. You know, the bad things that you are feeling, the faults, the shortcomings, the darkest of dark. I'm saying just, you know, there's nothing more healing than getting those things that you think are too dark to be loved or lovable out in the open and having people be there to give you the love, the grace, the truth, the support back, you know. So we want to have a gate where we're letting those things out, where there's room to do that as well. Walls are different because walls, you're not letting love in, you're not letting love out. You're just, you know what a wall is. It's defensive, you know. There's no input. You can't hear anything, you know. Shut down, not letting people into your heart, those kind of things. It's not the same as a boundary. So our goal is to be in a place that we're setting, that we're growing. And this is a growing process. This is not going to be magically overnight. This is the first time you heard about it. And man, you got the boundaries. You're clear on what's my responsibility, what's somebody else's. It can also be helpful too. And one of the reasons that we've been talking about this over and over, and I still want to make the point again, you need to have community in dating. You need to have other people in your life for dating, because there are so many things that you cannot see, but your friends can see. That if you've got friends, you want not just any old friends, because I've had friends that said, oh yes, have sex with that person, it'll make you feel great. You know, I mean, I've gotten, people can give you some really crummy advice, you know. You know, friends that are telling you, go after him, he's got money, you know. Yeah, come on, tell me you haven't had friends that have said things like that to you. Or, you know, she's hot, or, you know, whatever, where it's just where the priorities are totally, you know, skewed and don't work at all. But you want friends that you need to have around you that are spiritual, that are committed to growth, that are open, that are honest, that are vulnerable. People that can spur you on to love and good works. So you want that. You need people to fill you up for your need for connection so that you can't be lonely. That's what we talked about before, so you need those relationships for that. You need great relationships so that you can actually learn to be yourself. You know, Patty's teaching that you talked about, which was great, about finding yourself and getting to know yourself before you date. You also want great, safe relationships you can practice boundary setting, because great, safe relationships you can try and say no, and they're going to go, good for you. I'm going to totally honor that no. I want to stick up and fight for you. And they'll even invite you. Say no to me. I want you to say no to me, you know. Yeah. And as I said, we talked about getting others' feedback, because you lack, it's really emotional when you're dating, so you got to be honest, you're going to lack objectivity. There's just no way on this topic you're going to be totally objective, so you really need other people's feedback when you're lacking that objectivity. You also, so that way you want to tell people the details of your relationship, get some coaching, you know, on that. You know, you don't want to be in a place of somebody, you know, like, it's none of your business about my dating. I'm telling you, again, you're heading for disaster if it's like you don't want to talk about anything that's going, because you're not getting any input. You really do need input from good people on this journey, you know. So don't disappear when you're dating people, because, you know, don't be held hostage and somebody takes you away and your friends don't see you anymore when you start dating somebody. Is not a good plan. Okay? So we've talked about boundaries. The whole concept here that we're talking about is understanding what's yours and what's mine, what's yours and what's mine, that way, and that what's your property, and what your responsibilities, that you want to carry your own responsibility, and not be trying to take too much of somebody else's responsibility. And that takes time, actually, to get clearer and clearer on what that is. And again, others can help you with that. And then learning and trusting to speak up and to make requests, you know, to be able to say what you like you know, in a way that validates the relationship, that says that you really want to be close to that person, but these are the things that you like and desire, understanding that the other person, the ball's going to be in their court and they could say no, and being willing to, that you're not so lonely that you can step away when you need to step away from the relationship or make some consequences when somebody might be, you know, trying to overstep your boundaries. Because ultimately, they're your boundaries, they're your choices, and that's really where you can reclaim your ability that you are not any longer under the power of somebody else to make you happy, where you can claim your life back for yourself and make decisions and choices. And when you do that, short term, sometimes it is hard to let things go. Sometimes it is hard to let relationships go. So you have to have the other relationships there to back you up and to fill up your tank, because you can't be lonely. But the thing is, it's totally possible that you can stop being victim. You can stop being the victim. You know what a victim is? A victim is making somebody else responsible for your life. You know, where you're no longer the one that's in charge of your decisions and choices. You know, we don't want to be victims anymore. We want to realize the choices that really are ours to make and allow others to make the choices that they want to make. So.
Hello, and welcome to The Dating Game. I'm your host, Molly Matchmaker. Thanks for joining us. Today we have with us our lovely bachelorette, Michelle. Hi, Michelle. Michelle is a cable car driver from San Francisco who's looking to find her dream date. Tell us a little bit about the kind of man you're looking for.
I don't know, a good one? I'm looking for a Christian guy who I can have fun with, who is kind and honest and values his walk with the Lord.
Well, let's hope that one of these three contestants will be just that. Let's meet contestant number one.
Well, Michelle, see, I am a good one. I'm the best one, girl, and that's all you gotta know.
Okay, contestant number two.
Yeah, I'm ready for a serious commitment, Michelle. I'd love to have you come live with me and take care of me and never leave my side. And, I mean, I can't wait to take you out for a romantic evening.
Wow. Okay, contestant number three.
Hi, Michelle. It's nice to meet you. Although, does it really count that we're meeting if we can't see each other? Anyways, it seems like you're really nice, and I think it would be really cool if we got to know each other more. I'm definitely all about getting to know someone who shares a passion for life and God.
Wonderful. All right, now Michelle has prepared questions to ask each of our contestants. So, you will have 30 seconds to answer each question. Gentlemen, are you ready?
Oh yeah, bring it on, girl.
Okay, let's begin.
Thanks, Molly. Okay, first question. Please tell me about your last dating relationship, how long it lasted, and why it ended. Contestant number one.
So, Michelle, let's see, my last relationship, that was about a week ago, right? Yeah, and it lasted a good 48 hours. Yeah, it was good too, man. She was hot. Ooh, so hot, like muy caliente, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, her name was Marta, Margaret, Mandy. You know what? That don't even matter. Like, who cares what her name was, right? I mean, who cares? That don't matter. The fact is, it ended. Yeah, it ended too, cause she had to fly back to Phoenix, back to her wedding. What you gonna do?
Thank you, contestant number one. That was truly horrifying. Contestant number two.
My last relationship lasted for 4 years. We were actually happy for 2 of those years. Then we realized that we wanted different things. I wanted to stay together, and she wanted to break up. I'm terrified of being alone. She broke up with me 3 times, but I managed to stick around for those last 2 years. I miss her.
That is sad. Really sad. Contestant number three.
Well, my last dating experience was with a girl, a really nice girl that I met through a friend at church. And we went on a few dates and we had a good time. But after talking and getting to know each other, I think we discovered that we're just in different places in our life. And so we decided it would probably just be best if we were friends. So, but it was a really great growth experience.
That's lovely. Oh, Michelle, next question.
Okay. If I were to pick you, what would we do on our first date? Contestant number 2.
Well, first, I'd like to take you to dinner, someplace nice, like Denny's. And then maybe we could, go rent some movies and go back to my place. Or maybe we could go pick out some furniture for our my new apartment. Yeah, that would be great. Every place needs a woman's touch. Ooh, maybe I could even take you to meet my mom, and
Thank
then...
you, contestant number 2, that's quite enough. Contestant number 1, same question.
You see, peep this, Michelle. We would go to a club, girl, VIP, bottle service and all that. Get our drink on, like whatever you like. Maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe a little bit more, right? Then we go back to my place, have a little nightcap, and get our groove on, girl. Because I got a hot tub that would look real good on you, girl. Look, here's what I'm trying to say, girl. Michelle, you are a flower, and I'm a bee. And all you gotta do is let me buzz on over there so I can pollinate, girl.
On a first date?
Nah, I'm a gentleman, girl. We can wait till a second date. It's cool, right? Take it slow.
I don't believe in premarital sex.
You had me, girl. That was funny. I was like punk for a second, right? Yeah, I like a girl with a little sense of humor with some funniness. Got jokes, girl. Like it?
Okay, all right. Yeah, thank you, contestant number 1. Let's move on to contestant number 3, please, God.
Okay, well, I would definitely like to keep it casual on the first date. We'd probably just go someplace fun like the park or something like that, where we can just hang out and afterwards, if you would like to, I could take you out to dinner, and that way we can talk and get to know each other more. I'd love to find out more about your life, your goals, what you're passionate about, what you want to do in the future, all of that. So.
Thank you, cutie. Contestant number 3. All right, Michelle, last question.
My last question for the 3 of you is, why should I pick you to take me out on a date?
Contestant number 1, last chance.
I got this, girl. Check it out. Michelle, you should pick me, because I am the gravy to your biscuits, girl. I'm the cheese on your nachos, the chicken to your waffles, the beans to your chili, girl. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You and me. Harmony.
What does that even mean?
You know.
Contestant number 2.
You should pick me, because after what I've heard from you today, I'm pretty sure I want to marry you.
Contestant number 2, I had no idea you had such a sense of humor.
I wasn't joking.
Yeah, okay. Contestant number 3.
You should go out with me if you'd like to get to know me more. I'm all about openness and honesty. I would never pressure you into sex or marriage, and I think it would be great to get to know one another. I think we would have a really good time together.
All right. Let's give Michelle a few moments to make her decision. Michelle, have you made a decision?
I have, Molly.
Let's hear it.
I choose contestant number 3. He seems like a really nice guy, and to be honest, the other 2 just seem downright scary. Contestant number 1, you need to seriously reconsider the way you view women. We are not toys. And contestant number 2, I really don't think you're in a place where you should be dating. It's just not healthy for you. I also think that you may want to consider getting counseling.
I absolutely agree. Thank you for joining us, contestant number 1 and 2. You may leave the stage.
Yo, that's it? Like,
Yeah, you can go.
oh, we get no party gift?
No, seriously, leave the stage.
Don't get like not even a lifetime membership to something. Like Oprah be giving stuff.
Please get out.
Whatever. That's rude, man.
Shoot, leave the stage.
I'm just saying, like some top ramen or something. That's all.
Seriously, where are your times, guys?
Yeah.
Anyway, Michelle, turn around and meet your date.
Hi,
Congratulations, contestant number 3. Tell us your real name.
my name's Noah. Nice to meet you.
All right, and for the 2 of you, we are giving you $250 to spend on a day of fabulous fun, as well as dinner at your choice of restaurant on us. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful date. And for you in our studio audience, you are not going away empty-handed. We have for each of you your very own copy of the Where's the Love Dating Workshop. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of The Dating Game. I'm your host, Molly Matchmaker. See you next time. Let's throw him a big dating game kiss.
Yo, bro, you pick it up. Pick it up. You're not hot. Hit me up on MySpace, Facebook. Hey, yo. Can I call my mom?
Oh, okay, let's cut. Seriously, cut. Security!
Luckily, I was able to find a community of people, a church where people actually spoke into my life and asked me about these things, and it was completely foreign. Like, the experience of having people ask me about these deeper things and how they affected me actually brought them more to the forefront in realizing that they're important.
I would spend a lot more time in those relationships and I would neglect my other friendships, and that had a lot of different negative ramifications. One was that when the relationship did end, it was harder for me to integrate back in with my friendships because they were pretty much used to me being gone all the time. The second one that I kind of came to a realization later, that it's so important to have community when you're dating, just for the feedback and just to have a different perspective. Because when you don't have that, it's kind of like having a blind spot that you never really get to see until it's too late.
I met some people, and they were amazing spiritual people that I've become really close to. That they are people that never came off as perfect people. They were able to open themselves up and share what their lives were like, and by doing that, they made me feel safe enough that I could share my life with them. And when that happened, it was the first time where I felt like I didn't have to be alone, and that I didn't have to be so guarded. And so, and this was all because I felt like God was finally understanding who I was, and God was, you know, really, I could hear him clearly this time. And so when I met these, my spiritual family, who I call now my spiritual family, I was, you know, I started, like, I don't know, it was like I was such a guarded person, and then I became very open, and or I was starting to become very open, and then like, you know, I just felt like I was getting a lot of healing, and, you know, I didn't feel as you know, screw everybody else, and nobody can, like, get to know me. Like, that kind of mentality was starting to melt away. And that was when I was starting to learn about what healthy relationships look like even with, like, platonic relationships and relationships with women and other guys, like what it was like to be in a safe relationship. That's what I was starting to learn when I started coming to this church. And I realized, like, wow, like, these people, like, really are honest. Like, that's amazing, and they really know how to talk about what their feelings are like, and everything and God is like kind of intertwined in everything. And I thought that was such a relief, because a lot of times I like to do things on my own. And so the fact that God was incorporated into all this, and that, all these like really beautiful, loving people were able to, share their lives with me, really helped me soften up.
And I think that's one of the most amazing things that I have in my life now and the discovery that I need in my life is other people to reflect back what is real. I had no idea how much time I didn't spend in reality, just numbed out on drugs and just other things I numbed out on, and I realized I need people in my life, and I need that even more so when it comes to romantic things, where I really haven't had a clue most of my life. And as I go forward in that, I'm encouraged because I know I have people in my life that can help me understand what I am doing, and is this person right for me, and I can go to them and be open and more or less use them to help me understand and bring them into my life and bring the relationship to my friends who I trust and established that are there for me.
I feel like if I surround myself with people that want the same thing, like my friends that I have now, a lot of platonic relationships with girls and guys who are in pursuit of the same thing, and knowing that they want that same thing makes it even more real for me that it can happen. And I've never really had relationships like that before either, where I can be open and talk about how I'm feeling, talk about that this is hard, that it's not easy.
But luckily, I met friends that, were involved with church, and, I started coming. Why at first? I don't know, but through my walk, my spiritual walk, I slowly just started detaching from putting all my worth into this relationship, and really valuing me, as a person, as a woman, and where I'm now, now I could say, I don't have to date, I don't have to be with a guy. I still want that. I still want to be with someone in the future, I still want to get married. And have a family, and I look forward to that.